She is a mega seller. She is mind blowing. She is everything that embodies. And I've worked really closely with Tracy for a really long time. She's a top seller secret student, and she's bought probably every single other thing I've ever sold, like literally. She's been with me for a long time, but she is the embodiment of everything that I teach. Like, she does things by the book, and she is so brilliant in her ability to emotionally connect with her customers. She has actually built an entire empire through emotional connection. That's my opinion, at least. We'll see if she agrees with me. But I do believe that's why she does so well. She just has this really great knack for tapping into her audience and understanding them and executing in a way that people see her stuff and it just lights them up and it gets them so excited, and you guys are gonna love it. Oh, there you go. Okay, I was right. Hi.
Yay! Hello.
How you doing?
Good, you?
Fantastic. I'm so excited the time is finally here. We've been talking about this all week. How are you feeling? Good?
I'm good. I've got my coffee in hand.
You're ready.
The cats are sorted for the morning. The baby's gone to daycare.
Love it.
I'm good to go.
Fantastic. Okay, what time is it? Where you're at?
9 a.m.
Okay, so it's 9 a.m. You guys, Tracy is in Australia, which I love because of all of the people that DM me and ask me questions about other countries, other people always say, is it possible to build a successful print-on-demand shop from Australia? I get that constantly. And I'm like, yes, I have so many students in Australia that are winning. So I love that we're talking to you about that today. Okay, so one more reminder for everybody that's joined, please drop your questions in the question box with a little question mark instead of putting it in the chat as we go, because we want to answer them all at the end, and I'll be able to open those as we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with a speed round just to get to know Tracy, and she's going to answer my questions with 1 to 3 word answers. And we're just going to go through these as quickly as possible, and then we're going to get into some more like conversational questions. You ready, Tracy?
Ready.
All right, so 1 to 3 word answers only. Where do you live?
I'm in Brisbane, Australia.
Did you have any design or e-commerce experience prior to starting your shop?
No e-commerce, but I have a degree in interior design.
Oh, interior design. I didn't know that. Cool. I'm going to ask you for tips later. How long have you been selling on Etsy?
Since January 2021.
2021. How long have you been a Beowulf Biz student?
December 2020.
Perfect. What's been your biggest roadblock to overcome to get to where you are now in your Etsy shop?
Just finding my own way, like finding my own style.
Love that. One word to describe yourself.
Driven.
One fear you had to overcome in order to become a mega seller.
Well, actually believing in myself.
Love it. 3 words you tell yourself when you first started.
Trust the process.
Oh my God. Love that. Last question. Have you found selling from Australia particularly challenging?
No, particularly easy is probably more it.
Wanted to hear that from the horse's mouth. Perfect. Okay. So now we know Tracy a little bit better. Like I said, you guys, Tracy has been in Top Seller Secret. I worked one-on-one with you. She's in Research Revolution, was just in the Big Shift Mastermind. Like, she's been a huge part of the community, and I have watched her grow exponentially. And we're only in 2023, so it's been less than 2 years, a little more than 2 years.
Over 2 years?
It's just a little over 2 years.
It feels like longer.
Yeah, I bet. You've been through a lot. You've been through what most people will go through in about 10 years on Etsy. You have collapsed time quite impressively. So let's get into our conversation questions, and this is when we're going to be able to dive a little bit deeper and actually like flesh a lot of good stuff out for you guys, okay? So Tracy, walk us through your story. Tell us, why did you start? Where did you struggle along the way? I'm sure there's many. How did you overcome those struggles? And who and where are you now? And we can break those down if you need me to. That was a lot of questions in one.
Yeah, I will forget
Let's start
most of them.
with walk us through this in general, your story and why you started.
Cool. So I started during Christmas 2020 when we're all like, you know, Rona. When no one was leaving the house. We were doing anything. Like, my day job was closed down, and I was like, I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. And I was like, I need something to do. And I just happened to be online and I was looking through like Instagram, doom scrolling away. And I just saw these people that were like selling these shirts. And I was just like, oh, that's cool. And they were kind of talking about how like it's made to order. And I was like, that sounds great. I could do that.
Yeah.
What is that? I have no idea. I product like POD was not on my vocabulary at all at that point. So I started kind of like going down Google and I eventually went to YouTube and I found you on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I found your Blank to Bank ebook.
Yep.
And I'm sitting by the pool and reading your Blank to Bank ebook, and it just kind of escalated and I just fell all the way in and I have never turned back since.
Yeah.
It's been really cool. It has been a journey and it is a lot. It is super validating. I think the thing I struggle with, if I'm honest, is working a hefty full-time job and the time that you've really got to put into this as well. It kind of is like 2 full-time jobs running simultaneously. Right. So it was I was very tired. I was very tired, and you're kind of like, oh my God, why am I not there yet?
Yeah.
I'm tired.
So good. Yeah. Hear that all the time.
So it was a lot. So I had to do a lot of like planning, making sure that I was kind of going, cool, what am I spending my time on? Making sure that I, would go for a walk when you could go for a walk, and those kind of things to make sure I was still taking care of myself in amongst it. But I loved the idea of product on demand, or print on demand, because my worst nightmare would be having like boxes of products sitting down my hallway that I either can't move.
Yeah.
Coming home from work and having to pack orders, that was everything against what I would want to be doing. And just to be able to have the ability of being not location bound anymore, I could go on holiday, or I can move countries, or I can do whatever, and it can keep making money for me. That's super appealing, rather than sort of the change of the 9 to 5 and having capped limits of what you can earn as well.
Totally. I have an interesting question for you. It's kind of off the cuff. What was your favorite part in the beginning? What made you feel super sparkly and excited about all the possibility? And in contrast to, what is your favorite thing to do now?
I think originally it was just exploring and sort of noticing that I, as a woman in a corporate world, trying to climb the corporate ladder, and being shut down, going, you can't get a pay rise and you can't do this, to being like, I don't need your pay rise, I'm going to do it myself. That was what actually I found the most exciting, was just actually, you know what, I'll do it myself, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's actually what kept me going, and what I found exciting along the way. And just the more I learned, the more I was just like, holy, there's a whole world here.
Yeah. So much possibility. Yeah.
And I feel like we're really conditioned to believe that it's not possible to do. And the more I uncovered, and the more it came along, and the more we worked together, the more I was just it just opened my eyes entirely.
Did it ever make you feel like, oh my gosh, why doesn't everybody do this?
Yeah. All the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you should open the store. You should do that. And they're like, what do you mean?
Yeah. I remember thinking that all the time when I was doing print on demand. It was like, why is everyone around me not doing this? It doesn't even make sense, because it's not easy, but the possibilities are so never ending.
Yeah, it's amazing. I would go to work, and it was quite transparent in my day job that I was doing it, because I was so excited. Yeah. And just you guys, we don't have to be chained to our desk till we're 70. Isn't that amazing?
Right. And it's something that you can be really in control of, and the direction and everything like that. So you've said so many good things so far that I know so many people can relate to, especially in terms of finding that balance. I want you to speak to that for just one more second, because I get that question a lot of people saying, if I'm in a full-time job now, is it even possible to make it work? And they ask me how I would do time organization and how I would structure things. And I'm the most structureless person on the face of the planet. So I'm like, I'm not one to help you, because I just do things in extremes. But you, being somebody who started with a full-time job and somehow scaled this to the moon with your full-time job at the same time, how did you find that balance specifically?
I don't think I really had a lot of balance, to be completely honest.
I love that answer.
I was very driven.
Yeah.
Sacrificed like not really a lot of sleep. I actually was still pretty good on sleep, but I was all in. I was all in, doing it first thing in the morning before I'd go to work. I'd do it in the evenings. I'd do it in the weekends. I was doing it all the time.
Love that.
And for 2 years, right? So I, like, up until having my baby in December, I was still working full time. And even last year, so I was working full time, doing this, doing full-time work and being pregnant. All of that, like, it was a lot. It is a lot.
Yeah. No,
there is no
love that honesty.
It's not nice and balanced.
Yeah.
I am now, but it's taken a long time to get there.
And it is, like we said in the beginning, you have accomplished what most people will do in 10 years on Etsy, right? Like, you have scaled to such a high amount of revenue that that amount of work is what's realistic, and people need to know that. This is a full-time job that requires a full-time amount of work, and it requires that you stay open. Your creative valve, Tracy, you have the best, most open creative valve, which I love. I talk about that all the time to people. Like, that is your moneymaker, right? Like, that is what translates into dollars. So so I wouldn't say then, from what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't necessarily overcome a work-life balance. You just went all in. You knew what you wanted, and you allowed the excitement to drive you.
Yeah, I kind of went with that sort of short-term pain, long-term gain kind of approach, where it's just like, this, it's gonna hurt, but like, it's so validating and you're so passionate that you kind of just pour another coffee and just keep going because you're just that excited to do it. So that's kind of what I found. And now I'm in a space where, like, now I'm starting to pull that balance, but it's a good couple of years taking me to go, now I can actually start to structure that in a way where I can have weekends, evenings and afternoons, and I can, I can work whatever day of the week, because I don't even know what day it is at this point anymore, because that structure is gone. Like, you have to learn how you want to live.
Yeah. Would you say throughout every stage you were kind of having to readapt your lifestyle around what you were learning? I think people think that it's very streamlined, and it's not. It's a very, very messy thing that you are sort of like learning to fly the plane as you are in the air, right? Like, you're just figuring it out as you go. Would you say that's accurate?
I'm still doing that now. Like, I am constantly adapting, constantly learning, constantly refining, trying something, doesn't work, try something else, it doesn't work, this works. This bit works, so I'll take this bit and I'll scrap the rest of it. That is like a constant state of being now. And, well, I don't even think I'll ever get it perfect.
Right.
Because something else, right?
Which I don't think anybody in business ever does, because your customers' desires and what they want is always shifting and changing as well. So tell me, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you relate your flexibility as, in terms of just being like, oh, that doesn't work, let's do this. Oh, that doesn't work. 10 being your highest level of flexibility. Like, do you feel like you're like, no, I want to do this, so I'm going to find a way to make it work? Or do you feel like you're like, oh, that didn't work, so like, whatever, let's just try this or this or this now?
Okay, I'm a 10 now. I was not a 10 a year ago.
Love that.
I was not that a year ago.
Would you say that you were sort of forced into a 10 without a choice?
Yes.
And you can go kicking and screaming, or you can just go, right? Talk about that.
I had to, you talk about things to the cows come home, and I still had to learn some of these things the hard way.
Everybody does. Yep.
I still rebelled. It still happened.
Yep. I love it. Well, thank you for being honest. What would you say, what were the things that made you go, okay, like, you don't have to be specific, but like, were there certain turning points where you were like, I do need to be more flexible? Or was it just you saw that you could get to new levels and you couldn't get there without more flexibility?
I think what happened is, one, when I found out that I was pregnant, it forced me to find ways to do things differently, because I was like head first into water crackers because I couldn't do anything else. Like, it stopped me in my tracks. So my hand was forced. But I knew in my subconscious, because of the things that you teach, I knew some of this stuff that I just hadn't quite figured out how to make that work for me yet. So I still was kind of just trying. Yeah. And it was just before I found out I was pregnant, and I just got my last design up before I kind of went MIA.
Yeah.
For 2 months. Yeah. That kind of the penny started to drop for me, and then I couldn't do anything with it because I was so ill. I was like, oh my God, I finally figured it out, and now I'm lying on the couch because I'm so sick.
That's terrible.
marinated on that process and what I was going to do with it once I could actually like rise again and do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's kind of like my favorite book, The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Your obstacle being your pregnancy, you turned it into the way. Yeah. And because you had that challenge, it put you into a position where you were able to succeed even more. Like some people would have been like, I can't make it work. I can't make this work. But you were like, let me find ways to create opportunities out of this challenge, right? And it ended up allowing things to really open up for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. It like I had to really focus down. So I had to remove all the stuff that I was kind of getting distracted with because I didn't have time. I did not have capacity. I couldn't sit for long enough. I couldn't do anything. So I just had to go, oh my God, it's like a priority list, right? Yeah. And I went, I can do 3 out of 10, the rest are gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see that a lot too in terms of flexibility. And I just want to give a little teaching moment here because most of the time people will go in with a certain goal for their shop. I want to sell motorcycle t-shirts or whatever, right? And then they're like, can you help me sell it? And I'm like, there's really not that much demand, probably not. And they're like, well, I'm going to make it work. And then when they figure out it doesn't work, it forces them into a position of being like, well, maybe I'll be a little bit more flexible and sell car t-shirts. And that doesn't work. And they're like, okay, I'll be a little more. So sometimes like you're forced into positions that make you go in better directions if you can lose the ego. And I think you've done that really well in that you just shifted entirely into being like, okay, what are the ways that I can make this happen and serve my customer and still fully benefit as a seller in the meantime, right? It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Love that. Cool. All right. So who and where are you now? Let's talk about that. How have you changed? What's different?
So what's different is probably that I am more comfortable in everything that I'm doing. I'm not everything has more purpose to it. The steps I take are like, I'm still a hot mess. Yeah. About it is still messy, but I'm refining a lot more. I'm a lot more controlled in my decision making, I think, as to the process that I take now because like I've just had time. I've just had time and I've absorbed and I've observed and like just anything. I've just soaked it all up. So I'm a lot better that way. And now I'm in a position where I do less and I get more for it. So I do less design. They are very controlled. They are, they do really well, but I don't have time to do 10 designs in a row anymore. So I do 3, but I do 3 really well.
Yeah.
And so I controlled it that way. That's now how I change my time. So the time is still the same, but it's for less of. But financially, my customers love me for it because I've done something that they didn't even know that they needed in their life.
I love that. That's the key.
Yeah. So it's cool. There is definitely a pivotal change from like this line in the sand almost where I went, oh my God, that works.
Right.
To that's how I just run my structure now. So it's helped a lot.
Yeah. Love that. And to give everybody a little bit of insight into like, cause you had sent me a DM once. What was that? There was like, you made a certain amount of money while pregnant that you said you weren't even touching your shop at the time. Right. And it was not a non-substantial amount of money. Do you remember what that screenshot was?
Yeah. So when I hit that pivotal design that kind of went, and then I went pregnant and then I was doing 20K months and I was nowhere to be seen.
Love that.
No. And then I managed 3 more designs in my second trimester and that's all I could do. So between April last year and February this year, I've done 3 designs. Yeah. And that's all I could do. I could not muster anything else. And the peak season I did, I think 140,000, I think, in peak period. I was making sales while I was giving birth. It was weird. It's weird. Oh, no. It's exciting.
It's the magic of demand, right? Like the coolest part about selling things that are actually in demand is that it can carry you so far. And maybe not necessarily the case for everybody. Like we're not saying like, oh, just, it's all set it and forget it because like it's going to depend on the niche and all of that sort of stuff. But in your case, you went almost a year without listing anything new. You're probably still active answering messages and stuff in your shop still too. But I think a lot of people think they have to be constantly like 10 listings a day, or if they fall behind, or if they go on vacation, they're going to lose all their momentum. It's simply not the case. And also is not the case. Things don't go out of trend that fast. They don't go out of demand. They stay in demand, right?
That trends actually have quite a lot of longevity in them. And I didn't realize how long it is. I thought it was kind of like quite fast fashion, but it's like, it's actually not.
No.
It's actually
to my ear.
Had at least a year out of some of my really good sellers. Now.
Yep. Love it. We're still seeing cottagecore and dark academia, and that was like 2 years ago. We're still seeing that. It's huge. So yeah, thank you for saying that, because I think a lot of people are in the same mind of like, oh, I'm going to miss out on a trend, or it's only going to last 3 months, so I got to get on to the next one. It's not facts. So tell us then, let's talk a little bit. I'm going to skip ahead here to mental archive, because that is our topic of this 4-day event, right? And you are the queen of mental archive next to me. We're both the queens. But I think your love of research and your like excitement around it and the fun you have with it is huge in what you've been able to create, because you don't see it as a chore. You see it as something as like a direct reflection of possibility. So tell us, I'm trying to find my mental archive question, because I worded it very well in this one. Oh, what's your perspective on the mental archive, and do you believe in its power, and do you attribute any of your success to it?
Yeah. So it's funny, in the last couple of days when we've been talking, I didn't actually even probably register that I've been doing it to the level that I've been doing it. I just it's actually been quite a good realization as to what I have been doing by coming into this conversation. The one thing with my refining of my process that I have done is I have increased how much time I spend in research. So I actually, everything else I scale back, and that's the thing that I've increased more and more as time goes by. The value I get out of it is just, I get the most out of it. I get everything out of it. I spend a lot of time on Instagram, like in my training account. I spent a lot of time in Pinterest. My Pinterest boards are dime a dozen. And like I embody a trend, but I really go into collate anything and everything about what that is, to really kind of deep dive as to what that means. And I don't necessarily know whether I'm going to do anything with it, use it. I might park it and not even come back to it. But
right.
I just kind of, I allow myself to go down those rabbit holes, and I save it all and I construct it, and then I come back to it later on. And what I found that it means that, like, I'm just doing a new collection at the moment that I'm going to put up sometime next month or so. And I can now go, oh my God, I know, like I pull from those quickly now. So I pull and pull and pull. And then I go, I've got a whole pocket that I'm missing. So I did a 70s one not that long ago, right? So I was kind of like, cool. For my niche, like, for whatever reason, I was just like 70s vibe. That's it. It's happening. Yes. So kind of dive in, but it's like, it's not 70s t-shirts so much that I'm looking at, but I'm going, what's the color palettes? What's the shapes that they're using? What did magazine advertisements look like in the 70s? Like, what is all those things, so you can kind of get shapes, layouts, colors? What are they doing so that, and whether I use it all or not necessarily, but you can kind of see, it's like those, the aesthetic mood boards that you see on Pinterest where people have kind of like already made them. Yeah. It's like, and then you make your own. And it's just, I have all of them kind of, because you can kind of really go, how do I embody a 70s vibe properly? And it's it can be such subtle things that I actually end up using. It's not always super obvious. Yeah.
Like, you see how big I'm smiling? Everything you're saying. Like, this is music to me, because like, even though you didn't know you were working hard on a mental archive, I've known, because I know your results, and I know that's the only way to get those freaking results, is to have a really big mental archive. So you didn't even have to tell me that you were doing all of that. I already knew, because of this massive amount of results that you're seeing. So congrats, first of all. But so many things you said there. Let's talk about subtlety, right? Because people think that they need to be researching just t-shirts, and I'm like, no, color palettes, like you said, shapes, look at mood boards, like get the vibe and emotional connection. Talk to us about emotional connection and how you think that has helped you build a rapport with your customers, and almost like you have a community, right? Like you have people that are diehard fans. Talk to us about emotional connection and how you interpret that.
Fans are a new beast to get used to, just FYI. Yeah. It's wild when you start going, oh my God.
So fun.
Yeah. So my niche is a community is number one, right? So I am part of I am my own customer in one respect. Also makes it slightly easier, I guess, because I kind of understand at least a premise. But what I do is I have an Instagram that's basically dedicated to being part of the community. It's not, so I go, what does my niche? What do they do? What are they doing in the weekend? What do they love to do how do they spend their Saturday nights? What are they excited for next? It's not about a t-shirt. It's like, what are they excited about for next? What do they do in their spare time? Who do they hang out with? That kind of stuff. So I embed myself in that world to get to know what my customer, and you kind of, what's awesome about things like Instagram is you see people on their comments, people are really like vocal about what they're looking for. They're really vocal. Nobody's just like, oh God, I wish I could see such and such. Or, I can't wait to go to the lake with my family this summer. It's going to be awesome. And you're just like, lake with family, chalking that up one for later. Don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm chalking it up. So I do a lot of that. And then it allows, when I get to the trend combining piece, is to go, what trend makes sense for them? Because that's one thing that took me a really long time to go, is not all trends make sense to put together to get that emotional connection that you're looking for. So like, what are they looking for? What are they talking about that they don't realize? So that 70s vibe that I was talking about, they weren't talking about the 70s whatsoever. They weren't talking about that. But I felt that the way that they were talking about things, there was shapes and colors and bits and pieces that I could build it together to combine them.
Yep. And
that's how I was able to mash them together. But I've had to scrap trends too, where I'm just like, I know it's cool, but don't jump on that. Don't jump on it. Don't do it. It doesn't make sense.
So important. That amount of self-discipline. Yeah. To be like, I could try it. It's taking my attention away for a second, but I'm going to have the self-discipline to stick with what I've got because it's working.
Yeah. I didn't used to very much be just like, oh my God, that trend, I'm off. And then hours with the pair and I wouldn't sell anything. And I'd be just like,
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love that you said that about you have a trend trend research Instagram, and then you have an Instagram dedicated to researching your customers' lifestyles.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And you guys, this is such a high level 6-figure seller move. If that's over your head, like if you guys are watching this and you're like, what would I learn from that? I don't get that. Like, that just seems like it wouldn't be relevant to me. It's probably because you're not quite yet thinking like a 6-figure seller, because these are the moves that 6-figure sellers make, to be so drowning in research in all aspects to where you're literally obsessed with your customer. Like, how do I know more about them so I can give them more of what they're looking for? Would you agree?
Yeah, and like there's communities everywhere. Like Instagram and TikTok are amazing for communities, and there is a lot of people in all these communities too, which is cool. Like if you think about even like if you like the celestial vibe type stuff, like you can find some hashtags and you just slowly find people. And what are they doing? What are they buying? Are they buying a new crystal? What kind of crystals are they just like, oh my God, amethyst? Everyone's like, I love amethyst. It's so good. Oh, there's a new green witch book that they're looking at. What are they doing in the weekends? What are they wearing on a normal day? How do they spend their time? Like they're doing stuff and they're talking about things, or those things that they've just got that's nothing to do with clothing, but they're excited for. And you're just like, what are you excited? I'm excited for that. That's great. Yeah. And that gives you your information for like what things you can work with. And you won't work with everything. You kind of, over time, you will learn to pick out the things that work for you and that you associate with and that you like vibe that works for me.
Thank you for saying that again too, because that's another point I wanted to touch on. You said some things you find and they're not relevant. It just doesn't matter. And some things you find and it matters a lot. So it's important just to look at everything, right? And I think a lot of people worry, like I don't know how to research because I don't know if I'm looking at the right stuff or in the right place or whatever. And I'm like, just look, like go with where you feel like is the most valuable and go down rabbit holes and allow yourself to just fall into like the research and being able to understand your customers on a new level. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you're not going to use everything you look at, but that mental archive is going to make connections that you aren't even aware of until you sit down to design.
It'll be just those little things where something, you read something, you look at something, you're just like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And that's just like, now you've got that your own connection with it too. And I think that I relate better that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that. And that is, it's so closely a reflection of my experience as well. Almost everybody here knows I had a Raven Festival wear shop, right? And my customers would get my shorts and then message me and say, can I have this by Coachella? Can I have this by whatever, and they name all these different raves. I've never been to a Raven Festival in my life, but I became a Raven Festival girl without even going, just by like really immersing myself. I went and followed Coachella. I went and followed all the like Electric Daisy Carnival Instagrams, and I was watching people and what they were wearing and what they liked and what excited them. So it's like, there's so much power in excitement and what gets people excited. Yeah. And if you as a seller can find ways to get excited about what your customers are also excited about and then make those connections, mind-blowing. Like, you can change the world.
Yeah, it just kind of opens your eyes a little bit to what everyone else is doing. Because just because I am part of my niche, I am still one of millions.
Right. Yeah.
Broadens the scope, and you can't, and particularly because we work with a worldwide, global people everywhere, people are experiencing these things slightly differently too. Like, if I was, I don't know, let's say I was doing like rodeo stuff, right? So cowgirl type thing, like how I would experience that over here would be different to how they'd experience. But is there like shows that are on that are coming up that they're going, oh my God, this is like the sickest, it's going to be in Texas, it's going to be blah blah blah, I have no idea. Yeah. But what are they
exactly
for? And then what are they like, oh my God, I can't wait because I've got my outfit ready, or I'm going with my group of girlfriends and we're all going, and you're just like, there's just information galore. They're like screaming it at me at this point.
Yes. And I think there's something to that as well of getting into the vibe of it. Even if you're not directly thinking about certain things, it puts you in the vibe of what these people do and what they like and what they see and get excited about and all this sort of stuff. So like, you're in it now, and you can like sort of create from that space of being immersed in it. Yeah. And would you agree that like this probably most sellers' problem is that they're not immersed in what they're doing? So it's just this very one-dimensional, flat, like, oh yes, I'll try this and blah blah. And they're like, Brittany, your testing doesn't work because like none of this is sold. But they have zero immersion in their customer, and they're very seller-centric as opposed to customer-centric.
Yeah, it's like it's the other things around them that just kind of adds the value and brings everything and makes it more cohesive, I think, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So good. Love that. Oh my God, this is so exciting. Are you guys loving this? You can tell us in the chat who's with us still. Are you finding it valuable? I feel like Tracy is nailing things on the head here for us. Blowing minds in the audience. Okay. Let's talk about we kind of just talked about this. I think I probably know your answer. What is the one thing you feel you're best at in your shop or as a phenomenon seller?
Yeah. So I actually think because I was like, weirdly enough, I'm actually quite good at quite a few things now. So that was a weird realization.
Oh, that's amazing.
I've really nailed trend combining for my customers. Now that's what I feel like I've actually really knocked on their head, and it's taken time to get there. So, all right, this is huge. This is like equally as huge as the mental archive thing. It's actually directly connected, because you cannot be a good trend combiner without having a large mental archive, which means you cannot effectively trend combine without having logged hundreds of hours of research already, like creating best-selling trend combining. And for those of you who aren't aware of like what trend combining is, it's quite literally taking different trends, usually 1, 2, 3, even 4 maybe, and combining them in different ways in a single design to create a hyper trending item. And this is kind of what Etsy is all about. Like, most listings that you see with bestseller badge will have some sort of different types of trends weaved into one another.
Tracy is also the queen of trend combining. So let me ask you then, with your trend combos, how do you feel that, how effective is it for you consistently now? Do you feel like you struggled with it more? Like what trend, because people are like, what trends do I actually combine? I don't know how, like, I don't know which ones. Where were you before and where are you now with that?
So previously I was basically doing any trend that was showing anywhere with no real Stop right numbers, I'm doing it.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can relate to that.
And it wasn't work. I was spending a lot of time and it wasn't doing awesome. And then when I started spending more time doing the research part of it and like, you know, building these Pinterest boards, I found that I almost wasn't even going to find what was trending anymore to the same extent, because Pinterest was bringing this information to me. Instagram is bringing this information. And I was then started to use eRank as less of finding it in the first place, but more as just a validation piece. Because I was already starting to naturally do that anyway. And my best trend combining is now starting to work. It's a lot more natural now, but it's taken a lot of time to get there. But again, that's because I'll use the 70s thing as the example. Is like, I knew for this design that I didn't want it to be squared and structured. I knew it needed, you know, movement. And because that is what movement is what my niche needed. And that's how I started to combine those together. And then I used a retro color palette, you know, like your oranges, your navies with your creams, like that kind of retro rather than straight oranges. And I fold those in because it made sense to do so. And that's how I've started to mold those worlds together. I'm definitely running a space where it needs to make sense. It needs to make, the combo needs to make sense to me. From
a lens of understanding your customer, it has to make sense. It has to make sense to your customer's demand.
Yeah, that's right. So if I think about like the cowgirl, was it Space Cowgirl or something? Like I was just like, that's super fun. Terrible idea for me to do it because my customer base would be just like, you're on crack.
They wouldn't connect with it.
That it doesn't make sense to do. So so finding those ones and blending those together and really immersing myself in it has been helpful. I think also because of that though, I actually have found I don't have to immerse myself in as many trends because they're repeatable.
Well, there's so much opportunity. If you even have 3 trends in front of you, there's endless opportunity right there to combine in millions of different ways, right?
Yeah. Once I sort of like hooked onto one and customers were like, oh my God, I needed this in my life. Then I kind of took that trend and my niche and then I went, what else can I do? And then I moved on to the next one. And then I moved on to the next one doing that. And that's what I did for those 3 designs that I did like late last year is I took the same trend that I had done, but you wouldn't think like conceptually they kind of work together, but they're all completely different. Yeah.
So Tracy, are you telling me that you believe, we've talked about your mental archive, we've talked about trend combining, how both of those are probably what's attributed to most of your success, right? The more you research, the more money you make. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Very much so.
Yeah. Okay. That's all you guys need to know. We could just shut it down right here. I'm happy. No, but I think that is the hardest part to convince people of, because research, the words research, that's why I started calling it brain priming or mental archive, is because the word research, people are like, that's so boring. I don't want to do that. But when you're doing it correctly and you understand the connection between research and making money, you don't want to do anything else. Like Tracy just said, she like titrated her priorities to be like, okay, I want to go to the next level, so I'm going to pull back on everything else and extend the amount of time I'm doing research, right? So like you knew that was your best business move in order to continue to go to your next level. Because like doing what you've done in 2 years, it's hard to keep topping yourself because you've hit these huge milestones, but you started to make those connections because you lived it. The more I'm researching, the more money I'm making, the better I'm getting at making connections, the more I'm understanding my customer, the higher my revenue.
It all relates so heavily. and like it helps me so much too, because one, I can spend my time more wisely.
Yeah.
But my thoughts aren't quite, and my design process isn't as chaotic now, because it just kind of, it flows a lot easier.
Yep. Love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, time is flying. Let me ask you, what advice would you go back and give your less mega celery self? Which probably a year ago, maybe?
Yeah. Would be just to slow down in that first phase. Slow down. Like,
first phase being, would you do more research in the beginning?
Yeah.
Would you be less scrambled? Like, talk to me more about that.
Yeah. So what I was doing originally is I was like, cool, scrolling, brilliant, love that, moving on, gonna make it just and what I wouldn't do is kind of go, what is it about that? What else is there? And so I would just kind of hook onto the one thing, whereas now I kind of, you know, that, again, that mood board feeling, but I was moving too quickly and not understanding what it even is that I was trying to work with quite to the same degree. It wasn't terrible,
right?
But it wasn't as good.
Optimal.
Yeah.
Wasn't optimal. Would you say, however, that looking back, that phase was totally necessary for you to understand the importance of where you're at now? If you hadn't have gone through that, you would not have understood what you understand now.
Everything I did in that first, like during those first probably 12, 15 months before I like optimized everything, I did so much learning, and I understand so much more because of it. Like, yes, I went down and did trends that didn't make sense. Yes, I did like niches. I went like rogue on niches for a while there. And like,
you spent time failing, right? You spent time just like, I kind of just trying this and it doesn't work. And like, a lot of people would say that that is wasting time, but from where you're standing now, it was teaching you. You were learning.
Yeah, it means that, like, you know, I've done it, I learned it, I stopped it, I've moved on, I've moved on. So it's, you know, and like you're sort of in my DMs just going, I told you so.
No.
And I was like, I made it, I'm good.
I love it though. You know, that's like, it's one of my favorite things to see, because I have learned as like a consultant that I have to just let people. Yeah. Because I know 90% of people, we all have egos. We all want to do it our way. We all want to test things out and try it. And we're like, I think, Brittany said this, but I think this will work. I love letting people do that because it is the best way to get to where you're at. If you're tough enough, right? If you deserve it, if you keep going, you will trial and error your way to that 100% flexibility, to where then you're a mega seller because you went through the trenches. You hit the learning curve head on, and you failed a bunch, and you didn't take that personally. You didn't make it mean anything about your competency. You didn't make it mean anything about what you could accomplish in the future. You just took it as learning lessons.
Yeah. And like, I think the awesome thing is that like you lose time, right? You've spent time is what it's cost you.
Right.
Because it's a nice low risk business model, it's time that it's cost you, and you're still okay, I'll make another coffee, I'm good to go. But financially, you're not just like, holy crap, now I've got all these t-shirts I need to move. You don't have that. You don't have that. It's cost you. So you can't be that mad. I mean, you'll be tired. You can't be that mad.
Right. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about you're in Top Seller Secret. I want you to talk to us about what inside of that course when did you join that, by the way? Were you in the live version in 2021?
The one straight after the live one.
Okay, so maybe September-ish of 2021.
Yeah, but I was in something prior to that too. I as you said earlier, I've literally
you've hopped into literally everything. Okay, so you did Top Seller Secret 2021. What helped you the most, do you think, if you were to just boil it down in Top Seller Secret? Like, what resources did you use the most, or what was the mindset shift, or what stands out when you think about what helped you the most in that?
I think initially the E-rank, like the product offering one, like initially. Yeah. But the thing that I've used the most consistently and still use today is if I get these words around the right way, the scientist, detective, gymnast phase. Yeah. I still use it today.
Cool. So for those of you who don't know, scientist, detective, gymnast phase is your scientist when you're testing, what we were just talking about, when you're trying things out, a million different things, just being like, whatever, let's hypothesize and then test it. Detective is when you're making observations, where's the attention going? Where are the sales being made? What are people asking me? All of that sort of stuff. You're holding a magnifying glass up to your testing process. Gymnast phase is when you're getting flexible. And this is where most people struggle, is because it means you're taking the observations that you've made in your detective phase and building out on what you're seeing is actually working. Not necessarily what you want to build out, but what's actually working.
Yeah.
And that's why I call it gymnast phase, is because it's about flexibility, which we talked about earlier. So I guess we talked about that kind of the whole time. Your scientist detective gymnast phase is how you scaled your shop. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I've, you know, like using the same design across multiple different products, scaling that way, but then also going, how do I take the niche and the trending and actually how do I do it that way and scaling it that way, like trying things.
Yeah.
How do I, what works, what doesn't work? And just, it's just a constant state. I've had one design in particular that has done particularly well across different products. I don't have that with most of my designs.
Yeah.
Most designs have one or two things that they move on, but this one just went across everything and everyone wanted everything.
Love
I was like,
that.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
All right.
I love, and you don't know unless you try.
It's constant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I do that a lot.
Cool. So yeah, in Top Seller Secret, that's a whole system, you guys, that we talk about.
Yeah.
Science effective gymnast. I go very in depth on it, and it's basically like in your gymnast phase, because I think that's where people are most curious about. You go broad first in your testing with different niches and trying to figure out what catches on, because you don't know as a seller, you never know. You go very broad, trying a bunch of different things. You go more narrow as you're figuring things out and getting actual data about favorites and sales and whatever. So you're making data-based decisions in baby steps as you're deciding what to sell more of. So you're going broad first, then you're narrowing it down, and then you're going broad again. I'm giving a lot away here, you guys, but this is the system. You go broad again inside of those narrow decisions that you made about, like, okay, this is working, now how do I expand on just those things that I found is working? And the reason I explain that is because that's exactly, I think, what Tracy has done.
Yeah.
Is trying a bunch, narrowing it down, and then widening what she's doing with her designs based on what she finds is working. Would you say that's true?
With like things like Top Seller Secret, is I watched it all at the start, but I wasn't necessarily there in some of the phases yet. So I came back to them later on when I watched them and I was like, yes, makes sense. But then I came back to them when I was actually at that point, and then actually absorbed the information a lot better. Yeah. Because sometimes some parts of it, like I wasn't at a scaling out at this point, right, or what have you. Like,
that goes straight over the head. Yeah. And that's how it should be. At whatever stage you're at, you take the information you need, you go back, you get the information that you're at the next stage, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I think we'll maybe end on this and then take questions. What advice would you give someone who struggles to accept where they're currently at because they're so desperate to get to six figures? Because I know some people are watching this right now and saying, if I could just figure out how to get to where Tracy is tomorrow, then I would be happy. What would you say about skipping the learning curve?
I would say just give yourself permission to take time. So, you know, again, this is 2 years, you know, I've worked full time during all of that too. Yeah. So I had permission to take time to do it, to take all the learnings. I also too soon. So give yourself permission to explore, because you know, if you're in a rush, how do you make that long term? And the other thing is that learn the process, because when you hit six figures, you got to do it again, because that's how you get to the next six figures. Like it doesn't, once you get to six figures, it doesn't just stop and you never have to do it again. Like you have to still do the process. I still have to do the process now. So the more you learn it and embrace it and get to do it better. Yes. Goals. It doesn't go away. So like learn to love it.
So yeah, you guys, what Tracy just said might have gone over your head because you might think it's not applicable to you. However, somebody says you guys froze a bit. Are we back? What I want to say about what she just said is I've been talking about this a lot recently, in that people want to skip over the learning curve, but because it's painful. Would you say that your learning curve was painful?
Oh yeah.
Uncomfortable?
Oh yeah.
Right?
There's some bruises that come through it.
And the learning curve is where you're sharpened into who you need to be in order to create and consistently recreate the results that you end at. People want to skip over the uncomfortable part because they just want the results. But once they get the results, you haven't been refined. You haven't gone through the painful process. So you don't deserve the results. Tracy deserves her results. She's worked for them. So that's a really important thing. If you're watching the replay, rewind it about a minute and a half and watch that again, because what she just said is so incredibly important. Give yourself permission to be where you're at, knowing that where you're at is creating you into the person, the seller that you need to be. If you stick with it long enough, if you're working the strategies consistently enough, it will end you up where you need to be. So good. Thank you for that, Tracy. Okay, let's do one more actually. Any other words of wisdom for newer struggling sellers, aside from like giving themselves permission to just be where they're at?
I think just like there is so much opportunity here. There is so much opportunity. It is exciting. It is a lot of work. It is, you know, even at level now, I might make it sound easy. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. There is, you know, long nights. There is all the things. There is conversations with family and friends who don't get it. I have just those conversations.
Preach.
Yeah, I just don't anymore. They're like, oh, how's your t-shirt business going? It's just like,
you're like, yeah, great. Just made $100,000 this month. How's working your 9 to 5?
Yeah. I'm just like, sorry, I've just replaced my corporate wage and I'm about to replace my partner's corporate wage.
I love it. Sorry, not sorry. That's a really good point. Yeah. That's great. Allow yourself to be where you're at and ignore the haters. They don't understand.
Yeah. There is room for everyone is the other thing too. Okay. There is room for everyone. And it can be a mental battle, right? When you get bestsellers, the copycats come in and they are hard work to ignore. Oh God, I will never get over them.
Yeah.
There is things that still come and there's things that are mentally tough.
Yeah.
And
let's talk about that for a second. Like, you have had plenty of that, right? And your sales, they haven't dropped off. I think what people think is like they're going to get the copycats and then your shop is going to tank. It simply does not work that way at all. If you lose any sales, it's not even noticeable.
Yeah. Do you know what's really funny is that my design still ranks above their ads. And you're just like, timing.
Yeah. Yeah. That does not surprise me one bit. But you're still doing great. You're still thriving in the face of it all. But what you said is true. It is really hard to ignore because it feels very unfair, but it is kind of just the nature of the beast. Everything about this business model can't be perfect. And if you develop the grit in order to just handle it or ignore it entirely, you get the payoff, right? You're still getting paid. You're still getting paid really well. Okay. We're kind of going over here. So I'm going to pop into the questions. There are quite a few here. This is an interesting one. How many listings is realistic to achieve your sales level? How many listings do you have, Tracy?
So I have, I think, 120.
So good. I'm so glad this question was asked.
Yeah. And I'm at a point, so now that I'm kind of getting the consistency back again, like post pregnancy and baby, I will be limiting myself to 3 to 4 designs a month.
Love it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Somebody said define niche. So not what is your niche, but like, how would you define the word niche from your perspective, Tracy?
So I think my customers is like the customers that is my friends for the most part of it. It's like, who am I serving? Who am I hanging out with? What are they interested in? What's the small things that they're interested in?
So, yeah, from a general perspective, niche, the way that we've spoke about it in Tracy's, from Tracy's point of view, is like, it's a group of people with a specific common interest that she's catering to. Would you say that's right?
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody asked, did you do Wolf School to help with trend ideas?
I did. Yes. So Wolf School is great. And there was something you had prior to Wolf School, and I can't remember what that was called.
The Elite Membership. It was the same thing.
Yeah. So I was more when it was in that phase. And it was really good. It was really good. But again, the thing that I needed to really learn is of the trends that are going through, what are the ones that really speak to me and what are the ones that I can move along, because actually that suits so better than it does for me.
And that is sort of how I wish everybody would use it. I think most people in Wolf School are newer-ish, and so they're just chasing the trends as I give them out. But I would prefer that people just watch all the videos, soak it all up, and then nitpick what works for them, right? Which is kind of what you do now. So it might be just a learning curve thing of like understanding that you don't need to chase after everything.
Yeah, I think it's just time, if I'm honest. I think it's time, and I think as you get more sales under your belt and start to see what is honing in for your customers, then you kind of understand what trends will work for you.
Exactly.
It will be different to what works for me.
Great point. Really good point. Do you release single designs or collections?
I do collections now. I used to do single ones, but it just because I tend to kind of do a cohesive look across them. So I will do 3 or 4 in one go, and I would literally just drop and run. No, I'm not. I kind of go, cool, I'll put them all out at one go.
Yeah.
And I quite like doing it that way for me, because they all kind of go online at the same point, and you kind of watch their ebbs and flows as to what people are gravitating to.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting to go, this one's got X amount of carts, this one's doing better or worse than what I expected. Right. And also I can grasp like how long until people are searching for these things, because it doesn't, I personally don't put something online and everyone's grabbing at them straight away. It takes a few days.
Always, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and this, what we're talking about here, and a few of the things we've talked about throughout this interview, you guys, are more of the advanced 6-figure seller stuff. So I would not personally recommend, and I don't think Tracy would either, for somebody starting out to only do collections, right? Yeah. That might sound really fun and like, ooh, it's like a clothing line and I can drop a collection and I can talk about dropping a collection on my Instagram. But like, she's doing collections because she knows her customer in and out, and she's gone through the learning curve, and she knows that is what works for her now, but she's been through everything else to where she had to get there. So I wouldn't recommend that for everybody starting. All right. What else do we have? How do you find these communities on Instagram? Do you just put in the hashtag that relates to your niche?
Yes. Yeah. And there is rabbit holes to go down here too. Yeah. It's very, really similar to the trend spotting concept. Do you know what I mean? So if you're really honing an Instagram account, because your explore pages and stuff like that will start to, if you just try random hashtags, and then you'll start to see more as you kind of go along, because Instagram will learn to tell you who it wants you to see, and then you can kind of fine tune from there. It conceptually is the same thing, but I do split because I feel like trend spotting and my customer are still 2 different things.
Love that. And also, you guys, this might fall under the advanced category too. I think at every level, customer research is important, but if you don't have a niche yet, if you're still in your scientist phase where you're testing, I wouldn't make a separate Instagram for every single niche you're testing, right? Like, you can do some light research, but this is more when you're in the advanced phase of like knowing this is my niche, so I'm going to dive deep into my customer. In the beginning, when you're finding your niche, and even once you found your niche and are getting your footing, trend researching in general should be your priority. Okay, how many sales per day are you doing right now?
I think when I last looked, I'm doing 30 a day.
About 30 a day.
Yeah.
We love to see it. All right. Are your sales consistent right now?
Yes. So interestingly enough, I'm doing more now than what I was doing in peak season last year. So, which is wild, right? Because in theory, we should be dipping now at this point with seasonality.
Yeah.
So it's consistent. And I mean, there are slower days, bigger days, etc. That happen.
Yeah.
It is nice and consistent, and I try not to look month on month too much to go, oh my god, I did this month and it's less this month than it was last month, because there are so many things that change month on month that I don't worry about it too much now. I did, but the key for me is going, is my business doing this? Is that what my revenue is doing? Even with the, it's
so
not nice.
Important.
Yeah.
So important. Allow the waves, allow the ups and downs without hyper focusing and being like, oh no, I only did this today. Oh, I did this yesterday. Oh, it's so much better. Oh, it's so much worse. Like, hyper focusing on your statistics is only bad for your mental health. Like e-commerce, even for mega sellers like Tracy, is always going to be a roller coaster, and that's okay, because in the end, it all comes together.
Yeah.
Somebody asked, how long did it take you to reach enough profit to match your full-time job?
Quite a long time.
Yeah.
Funny story about that one. I figured out about 3 days before giving birth that I actually wasn't charging enough on my sweatshirts, and I wasn't making any money whatsoever on them.
Oh, wow.
And I'm glad that I was breaking even, but I was just like, something's not right here. Something's not right here. So I had to do I did a very last minute overhaul, and I put my prices up properly to where they should be. And that was just because the conversion rates and currency conversions, and like the slow price increases, I wasn't keeping on top of anything.
Yep.
That it just kind of got away from me.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll happen. That's a good learning moment. But I bet you'll never let that happen again.
Oh, no. We're all over there now. So the point now that it is replacing my corporate wage and more.
Love it.
Yeah.
Somebody said, did you wait, in the same vein, did you wait until you made the same money from your Etsy store before leaving your full-time job? When did you know it was the right time?
I did. The biggest thing that I really wanted to know before leaving was I wanted to be able to understand the consistency. Like, how does Etsy work on it? Like, I've never done retail, so I didn't really know how the ebbs and flows worked in retail, and like, what do I need to pay attention to? And because, like before Christmas, like it might be split, but how do I take that profit and smooth that out so that I'm not paying myself inconsistent? Like, how do I do bills? So I took time to learn that kind of stuff so that I could go, what does this need to look like over a year?
Yeah. So
that I can kind of understand how that smooths out, because again, there are lower months where I wouldn't necessarily, like, I don't want inconsistent pays. So I took 2 full years of watching how Etsy and like how commerce and like e-commerce in general works to understand better.
So you knew it was the right time when you felt that you were comfortable and confident enough that you were making consistent enough money, and that it would continue, that you had what it took to continue it forward. That's when you knew it was the right time.
A really good stability in the shop at that point, so it wasn't like falling off the face of the earth and then going back. Like, it was like messy at that point. The consistency had really started to get there. And I mean, I had a baby, which kind of forced the issue as well, a little bit, but the timing's about the same.
Love it. So yeah, somebody asked also in the same vein as time, how many hours do you think you worked in the beginning compared to what you work now?
Yeah, so I was definitely doing around about 40 hours a week on top of the full-time job. And actually, I've just been sitting down not long ago to kind of replan and restructure.
Yeah.
And I'm being at about 20 to 25 hours a week now.
Cool. That's amazing. So you went full-time in the beginning with 2 full-time jobs, and now you're part-time.
Yeah.
You just have a part-time job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You built it. And that's really, you guys, that is the way that it usually goes with mega sellers, is that you got to put in the grind time in order to hit that. Once you hit that sweet spot, you get this momentum that allows you to dial back your time input. And the algorithm is just kind of like, we know you're good. Like, we're going to keep bumping you up because you have a track record with us now. We know what you're putting out is getting purchased. So you have that on your side. And most mega sellers will fall into like the part-time range to maintain results. So that's a really exciting thing I think people can look forward to.
Yeah. And like, I feel, I feel confident now, like comfortable in my own with the business, right? So I know what it can do, and I know where I'm at, and I know what I need to do to move forward. I don't feel like, oh, and now what?
Yeah.
So I allowed it to kind of simmer it and sort of settle in.
Yeah. Yeah, because in the beginning, I think your nervous system is a lot more triggered because you're just like, oh, I got to try everything. Like, I just have to go, and it feels hard. And that's that learning curve test. Like, the learning curve is so cool to me, you guys. In any new skill you're learning, you will always come up against the learning curve. And it is there to help you, even though it's hurting you. It is painful. It is uncomfortable. It sucks. Most people quit in the learning curve because of that. But if you just stick with it, if you keep going, if you can bear the uncomfortableness and the uncertainty that's on the other side of that learning curve, you do hit the sweet spot. But it's only if you deserve it. It's only if you've worked to get there. And you have to be really courageous and really willing to put in the work. And I love that Tracy is so honest about how much work she put into this, because she could get on here and be like, oh yeah, I'm just really good at trend spotting, and like I just put stuff together and it just works. Like, no, she's very honest with us, right? About like, no, this is a grind. This is like, it takes grit. It's hard.
It's funny. They said to me yesterday, like, oh, you're so lucky, and I stopped them.
Yeah.
And I said, luck has nothing to do with this.
Good.
Nothing to do, because it's not. It is not luck.
No, it's not. It's very hard and specific work. It's being very deliberate about your process. And that's why I'll also create a Top Seller Secret the way that I did with the Scientist, Detective, Gymnast mode being a process, to where you like dial into these things to where you're still trying a lot, but you have a system and you're being extremely intentional about every step that you're taking. So you're gathering more deliberate data in order to build on top of, so you get results so much faster. Like Tracy collapsed, like I keep saying, 10 years of experience into 2. Are you primarily selling apparel, or have you expanded into other products?
Primarily apparel. So I've done like mugs and bits and pieces like that, but to be honest, t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies over again.
Do you use Bella canvas or Gildan t-shirts?
I use Bella most of the time now, because I just like their colors and their style. My customers give me better feedback with them.
Cool. Do you use Etsy ads? Wow, we haven't talked about this yet. What? Let's start with, do or don't you use Etsy ads?
No. If there's one thing that I learned from you the whole time, is like, ads are no good to anybody if you don't have your foundations right. Right. So, and then I just don't want to pay for ads anyway, because if I can outrank everyone by doing it right, why pay for ads in the first place? Like, there is no need for it. Yeah. I don't need to.
Tracy, I'm just going to hire you as my spokesperson. At this point, I'm like, it's just so nice to hear what I know to be true, because I went through it. It's so nice to hear from somebody else that can vouch for it as well. No Etsy ads. What are your profit margins typically?
I sit now that I've done my price increases, I sit now at about 40 to 45%.
Yes, everybody assumes, oh, 15, 20% is typical, but no, you guys, 40 to 50, like, it's so doable with t-shirts, sweatshirts, and hoodies. And again, that's exactly why I teach what I teach, is because it's very deliberate. Do you use coupons at all?
No. So I had clothes and bits and pieces like that, but like no one reads descriptions, no one reads anything, so I just took them off.
There you go. Are you using Canva for design, or do you have more professional software?
So now I've shifted a bit. I used Canva for probably the first 18 months. Now I actually do most of mine by hand on my iPad and Procreate for the most part of it.
Sure.
Because what it's actually done is it's actually invigorated my actual art skills have started to come back into play again, which is terrible, but it's been really fun.
That's cool. What is your average profit? So 40 to 45%, you said, like, say you sell a t-shirt, how much actual cash are you making on that t-shirt?
Yeah. So, what is it? That's about, I think, $12 to $15 per shirt, I think, somewhere around.
Yep. Perfect. What do you pay attention to when trying to learn about what the people in your niche or community wants?
I absorb everything for the most part, but people get excited about stuff, right? So people are really vocal. So I just listen.
Yep.
I just listen and I get excited about what they're excited about, even though I don't even know what some of it is. I'm just like, oh my God, that's all. What? I don't know. Google what that is.
I love it.
Get excited. Just everything. And again, some of the stuff you kind of disregard, you park it for later, but it embodies who they are as a person. And that's, the more you can like immerse in as to who they are, the more you become relatable to them. You guys,
there's so much gold in this hour and 15 minutes. I hope you guys watch this a million times over again. Like, we could sell this course for so much money as a course, because Tracy, the things you are saying, so good. Somebody asked, do you focus on evergreen, or do you also do holidays and current events?
I do no current events, no holidays, no nothing. So every time Christmas rolls around, I'm just like, I really want to do a Christmas design.
Yeah.
And I don't do it because I don't need to, it doesn't make sense for my niche to do so either. So I just focus on evergreen.
Again, it's self-discipline. It's not being so like so results focused that you lose sight of what's actually realistic, right?
Yeah. What I will say is when it comes to near Christmas is my niche and my designs on a forest green sweatshirt will pick up.
Love that.
So not Christmas related at all. It's just that my design happens to be on I don't know. So things like that still happen, but naturally.
That's a really good point. And again, there's subtlety there that a lot of people overlook. They think that things need to say Merry Christmas in bright green and red in order to sell during Christmas time. But it's like, no, very subtle things can make a huge difference. Okay, Tracy, I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm going to ask one more question from the list here. Do you recommend sticking with niches or customer groups who you more personally resonate with? She says, example, I resonate with witches more than cowgirls.
So I think each to their own, but in order to truly understand your customer and what they want, you need to relate to it to a certain extent too, right? So if it's not your thing, you at least need to care enough to want to get to know it. Like, if you're just like, God, I hate witches, you know?
Yeah. Because then you don't understand the emotional connection. If you hate it, you don't get it, and you shouldn't be designing for it.
So, but if you love witches and you don't like cowgirls, like, cool. Like, you have a natural passion that you start to move to, like, just by virtue of being somewhat interested in it.
Follow the excitement, you guys, and all of these questions, there's a common thread of like, where's the excitement? Because excitement means energy, and there is so much money to be made. If we're talking about being successful here with Print on Demand, there's so much money to be made where there is emotional momentum. Yeah. That is literally what it is all about. I'm sorry, one more. This is a really good question, actually. What's the best print on demand company in your opinion? So like, you use Printify, yeah?
I have just moved from them.
Oh, interesting. Tell us about this. I'm actually interested to hear this too.
I moved my whole shop to Printful.
Oh, really? Interesting. Tell us why.
Because my defect rate was so bad during Christmas.
Interesting.
I had a lot of volume. I had not great customer service and not great work from them, that I picked up and moved my whole shop.
Tell us specifically which supplier was that on Printify?
So they brought out Printify Express for a while. They were trialing with merchants. So they only did it with a select few. So I put a handful, but I put my best sellers on, because the idea behind it was, we'll get your shirts out within under 24 hours and the customer will get it within a short amount of time, because we're going to Express, so you pay extra as a base rate. And most of those customers didn't even get their shirts by Christmas. So it was messy.
They just did it too quickly.
It was really...
Okay. What I don't want to happen here is people say, oh, Tracy said she moved from Printify, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
The defect rate at such a high level, plus it being Printify Express, you guys, it does not mean that every supplier with Printify you should drop out of, right? Were you using like Dream Junction or Swift POD? Like, can you name any specific? Yeah. You're using both of those?
Most of my stuff, I housed most of my stuff with Swift because I really like their print quality. Most of it was routing anyway, because they couldn't keep up with it. But what I will say with Printful is, Printful works for me now because I have volume to bring the pricing down.
Exactly.
And it's a lot more comparable, but without that discount and the volume on it, it's a lot harder. Like, that profit margin is a lot less. So it makes sense for me to move there now, but it wouldn't have made sense a while back. But that was the straw that broke the camel's back for me.
Understand.
Yeah.
Understandable. So that's a really important distinction. You guys, this is another one of those things that's like maybe in a more advanced seller move. I don't want everybody to hear her say that and jump ship, because you're gonna have lower profit margins. It's not a disaster for everybody. I sold with Printify for 7 years and it was fine. So it's super helpful to know that you had that experience and that you're happy with Printful at the moment. Yeah. So it's an option, right? And in my shops, I sold out of Printify and Printful. If one didn't have it, I'd go to the other one. It's so much more flexible than people think.
Correct. I still have stuff with Printify. Printful don't do forest green or sand, as an example, and they're two sellers, so they still all go through Printify. So I haven't like deserted them entirely, but I have moved my my standard t-shirts and all those kinds of stuff.
Yes.
I've moved my, yeah.
So if people are still with Printify, you would say Swift POD and Dream Junction. Those were your go-tos?
Yeah.
Cool. Amazing. Okay, Tracy, I'm gonna wrap it up. You went way longer than I told you. I said we were gonna be an hour, but thank you. There were so many really good questions that people had to ask. And I actually might stick on for another 5 or 10 minutes and answer any that anybody has. But thank you so much. This was like the coolest thing ever. I haven't actually spent this much time with one of my mega sellers in a workshop style like this. And this was the best. Thank you so much.
I just hope it was really, like, I hope it was helpful.
I think you helped a lot of people today. Yeah, and people watching the replays are going to enjoy it as well, I'm sure.
Amazing. I hope everyone gets excited and does awesome.
And stick through it in the learning curve, like Tracy did. That's the only way you get to where she's at.
Push through. It's worth it. It is worth it.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Tracy. I'm going to stay on, but I think you can exit out.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What do you guys think? Was that as epic for you as it was for me? Because that was like so cool. I'm just seeing, I go back and seeing any comments that were made. Good. You guys did a really good job at putting your questions in the question box. Thank you for doing that and for being respectful of her. I really, really, really appreciate that. So great. Good. So inspiring. So helpful. Tracy's the best. Best. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for me before we wrap up day 1? Day 2 tomorrow will be at 1 p.m. Pacific, and it's going to be, ooh, Chris said completely revelatory. I like that. I'm just beginning and it was great. Yeah, this is really good information. I remember Tracy from your podcast. Yeah, it was really cool to hear this is round 2. I forgot she was on my podcast. Thanks so much, Brittany and Tracy. It was worth staying late for it. Oh, thank you. I'm a 6-figure seller, but my sales went down since last November. I kept going and pushing, but this interview gave me more reasons to keep going. Incredible. That's why we do this. That's why we're doing it, you guys. That's really good to hear. Tomorrow is day 1, or not day 1, day 2. But we're actually going to get into, yes, it is the same Tracy, Cindy. I didn't even remember that. Thank you guys for reminding me. We're getting into the mental archive stuff tomorrow, like slides and like in-depth stuff. So I'm actually really glad that we were able to start today with Tracy, because I feel like it is like going to light a gigantic fire under your guys's shops and efforts. So I'm super excited about that. But tomorrow we're going to get into some like real specific stuff. Love the timeline advice. Yeah, I think hearing from just regular people who have pulled this off and somebody as like courageous and badass as Tracy, who worked 40 hours a week on her shop while maintaining a full-time job, like that's so badass. And it's so what it takes sometimes. Like when you want something, you do what you need to do to get it. And Tracy got pregnant, and because she had put the work in ahead of time, she was able to just like kick back for a little while, and her shop carried her without barely any dips, which I think is like one of the coolest parts of her story. Cindy says, I especially love when Tracy said she's replacing her income and on her way to replacing her husband's. That's my drive. And it is totally doable. You guys, like Tracy's one of many in Top Seller Secret who has done this. She is one of many. Like I get DMs all the time about people quitting their jobs and being full-time. So like I can tell you it's possible until I'm blue in the face, but I really wanted you guys to see somebody in the flesh that has actually accomplished it, who had 0 e-commerce experience. She's just like you guys, but she had a lot of determination and a lot of grit and a lot of courage to work her way through that learning curve in order to get where she is today. I'm so glad you're doing this. I binged your podcast and needed more. Oh, that's amazing. I'm so glad you guys loved it. Yes, treat it like a hobby and you'll get hobby results 100%. And treat it like you deserve results right away. And you're going to find that, no, you don't, right? You don't deserve results right away. You deserve the results that you, like your results are in direct proportion to the results that you deserve. How hard have you worked? How much have you researched? How many good decisions have you made based on solid strategy, right? and all of your results will be a reflection of that. You don't just get to get sales because you open an Etsy shop. You don't just get to get sales because you try. You get sales and significant sales and consistent sales because you have dove headfirst into something insanely scary, but also extremely exciting. And I think what I love the most about Tracy, and the things that she's, why is my video freezing? Thank you for saying that, Nicole. It's very annoying. I pay like $80 a month for the fastest Wi-Fi. I have no idea why it's freezing. Sorry. But one of the things I love most about Tracy is her excitement for things. You guys can see as she's talking about things, right? Like she is so into what she's doing. She loves it so much. Her passion is so big. And in contrast to people who are just like trying to throw up designs because all they can think about is getting money, being all about themselves, this is what I'm always talking about, as opposed to being seller centric, being all about you and what you want and the fact that you want 6 figures and you want to be doing better and you want more results. Just flip that totally on its head and say, okay, I am going to be all about my customer, just as Tracy has done. I'm going to follow them on Instagram. I'm going to see what they love. I'm going to give them what they love. I'm going to become an expert. And tomorrow with our day 1 mental archive boot camp, we're going to be talking about how experience is the gateway to expertise. And we just had, oh, somebody said, Debbie said, I don't think it's your connection. You're not frozen on my end. Okay, good. I'm glad. Your experience level is what leads you to expertise. And as somebody like Tracy, who was sitting in front of me as an expert, right? She's a master at this point, multi 6-figure sales on Etsy. You are a master. That does not come by hiring people on Fiverr to bump your listings up to the first page. It comes by allowing the process of becoming a master to happen. It allows the discomfort and the facing the uncertainty every day head on, to ignore the self-sabotage, all of those things that are telling you that this is something you cannot do. I'm sure there's people that were in this live today looking at Tracy and saying, that's really cool, I'm so inspired, but it could never be me, right? Like that thought creeps into your mind. That's part of the learning curve, is learning how to deal with those thoughts, because they're lies. It's not the truth. You could be doing as well as Tracy in 2 years as well if you resource yourself correctly. And that's another thing she did really well. She's bought everything I ever put out because what I was saying to her resonated, and she knew it was the truth based on what she felt. She's very intuitive. And so she went with that and she followed it by the book, and she made all the right decisions based on the strategies she was learning. Cindy said, would absolutely love if you have a seller on, that was a short Instagram a while back. She was making 100,000, then 200,000 a month. Would like to see how she's doing now. Oh, Renoka. Yeah. I would like to talk to her again as well. Treating my 9 to 5 as my other job from now on. This is full time. Yeah, right? Like seeing your print on demand full-time job as your full-time job. And that's just like your other thing, right? Like that's just what you're doing to sustain your ability to work on your main job. Was on the same boat as Tracy, had bad pregnancy and worked max 1 hour a day, just process orders. Amazing. Yeah, it's possible. Getting to that level of momentum is a really incredible thing. And one of the other reasons why, people like to poo-poo Etsy all the time is just like, oh, the fees are too high, which by the way, it's the lowest e-commerce marketplace for fees. But they say like the fees are too high. There's too many big shops. Like new sellers don't have a chance. None of that is true. It's just noise, right? And like, the cool thing about it is you have the chance to be in front of customers right alongside the big shops if you're good enough. But if you're not good enough, if you're not creating high demand enough designs, you don't deserve to be next to the good shops who have worked their tails off to create designs that have that high level of demand as well. You don't get anything you don't deserve in any business that you're trying to start. So I hope that you guys find that very inspiring as well. That's that aspect of what Tracy talked about, and don't find it discouraging. The fact that she said, yeah, I worked really hard for this. It took grit, it took determination, it took going and getting it, because we could both be sitting here telling you like, oh, it was so easy. You guys are going to love it. It's so much fun. It's like, that's not the truth. So we're not going to tell you that. We're going to tell you that if you want this as bad as Tracy did, or as bad as I did when I started, it is going to suck for a little while. And then it gets really cool when you can go part-time. But like no business that you're trying to make multi six figures in is going to be a cakewalk the entire time. You're going to come up against huge things that you have to learn how to turn into advantages as opposed to roadblocks. If you guys have not read The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday, go get that freaking book right now. All right, does anybody else have any other questions for me before we go? I will see you tomorrow for technically day 2, but it's going to be day 1 of the Slides Live of Mental Archive Boot Camp. If you are not registered, you will not receive replays. You will not be entered in the giveaways. So you need to go register now at the link in my stories or in the emails that I sent out. I can't believe she didn't use ads. So many others teach you to use ads. Yes, you will hear me say time and time again, people love to fight me on this. People love, like this is one of those really controversial things, along with free shipping. I've noticed a lot of people love to fight about whether or not they should use free shipping. I can only tell you my opinions. I happen to work with thousands of sellers, and so I have a big mental archive when it comes to understanding what works for people and what doesn't. Free shipping, turn it off. But ads is another one of those things that's very controversial because everybody says like, you got to use ads, you got to leverage ads. No, you don't. You have to leverage demand. You have to fall in love with your customers. You have to become a master at demand, and then you can do absolutely everything organically, guaranteed. Most people do not believe that they can make a full-time income or create a full-time Etsy shop completely organically. They're like, yeah, Brittany says it, only a few people do it, I bet. But like, no, I have so many people doing it. I did it for 8 years, and ads I ran, it was just like icing on the cake. It was like very minimal amount of money. I didn't even need to run them. I was just doing it to see. But it's just not necessary. Yeah, Cindy says, don't need ads. They save me so much money. Yeah, offsite ads are great once you're at a certain level. But in the beginning, like people think they need ads. People are so worried about getting their listings in front of more people in the beginning because they think like, oh, I'm not getting views and all this and all that. It's like, no, it's because you're not good yet. You're not getting views is because nobody wants your stuff yet. You have to look that in the face and keep going anyways. That's how you get, like, what we're talking about with Tracy is magical, you guys. I don't know if you realize that, but like what she's talking about, oh, I've sold multi 6 figures, right? And it's all organic. What she's talking about is magic, and you don't get magic by not facing some serious shit, not being willing to face things that are really hard and really scary. You don't get to just soar there to coast. You have to put in the work and understand very specific things and very specific strategies. And you have to be smart and take baby steps and allow the process to happen in order to obtain that magic. And the people that get to the multi 6-figure level understand the process and they commit to the process and they fall in love with the process. Okay, guys, I'm going to wrap it up because quite frankly, I almost don't have a voice and I got to save it for tomorrow. So please be there at the live tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific. It's when the real workshopping is going to start. It's going to be jam-packed with info. I can't wait. It's going to be so much fun. Okay. I love you guys. Thank you so much for being here and sticking with me for almost over an hour and a half now. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to send out the replay to everybody that is on the email list tonight. You will be receiving that, and it will also be posted to Instagram for probably a week or so as well. So it'll be here. Thank you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.